Well, this isn't good. This is not how you want to end a season or end a year that has already been so horrendous. The Toronto Raptors were close at halftime, and then they end up losing by the worst margin in franchise history. And Lord knows there have been some really bad teams in this team's history. The Toronto Raptors have currently lost 11 straight. The record, for those of you who are wondering, was set in the 98 season, the awful 98 season. I believe that's the year that the Raptors ended up getting Vince Carter. And that record is 17. And I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is you have a chance to break that streak so that you don't end up in historical categories anymore against the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow. And you don't have to wait very long because in 26 hours, you have a chance to make up for this. However, the bad news is if you don't break it against Brooklyn, you will make history against Detroit. Now, how ironic is that? That last year the Detroit Pistons avoided making history against the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors ended up losing to the Pistons, which was the beginning, which was right to end the last season. And it's almost like that curse that was with the Pistons has now transferred over to the Raptors because I got to tell you, it wasn't any more fun, probably, covering the Detroit Pistons last year than it has been covering the Toronto Raptors this year. Now, it's not to say that this game was all for naught. It's not to say that everything was bad in this game. There was a lot of good things in this game, too. You may not believe it looking at the score, but for a team that has been so gutless defensively for the first half of this game, this Raptors team was so connected defensively, it was almost inspiring. So inspiring. It was awesome. I genuinely believe that they outplayed the Boston Celtics in the first half. I don't think that the Celtics played well in the first half. And I did not think for any second when we walked into halftime with a 10-point deficit that somehow this was going to be like some miraculous game winning, season saving. Well, it's not going to save the season, but let's just say morale boost victory. I didn't think in any way in hell that the Raptors, after burning themselves out the way they did defensively, playing so connected, multiple efforts, crashing the glass, trying their best, smoking layups. Now, y'all want to say this is about coaching. Coaches can't make layups for you. At some point, the only thing a coach can be judged on is how open are the shots you're generating, how well are the lineups you're constructing, and ultimately, how accountable are you holding your team? And I don't necessarily even think that I'm going to sit here and say that Darko Rajaković is doing some phenomenal job coaching. I wish these losses were closer, man. I do. I got to tell you, 54, 53, 55, 45. These losses, when they're by so much, are so humiliating and so demoralizing. And if they're demoralizing for you as a fan sitting at home on your couch, just imagine what those players are going through right now. Now, it's not completely on the players. It's not completely on Darko. It's not completely on Scottie for taking too many threes and bricking a whole bunch of them. But there are some stats that I think are worth noting. Number one, the Raptors defense has been abysmal the last 4 games. They surrendered over 400 points coming into this game over the last 3 games. It has been a turnstile. Their defense has been a turnstile. And you'd think to yourself that with RJ Barrett and Grady Dick out of the lineup, by far your 2 worst defenders in your core rotation, that you would have a better defensive effort. And I do think that they had a better defensive effort to start. They just couldn't score. They couldn't hit a three. They couldn't hit a layup. They couldn't hit anything. They couldn't throw the ball into the ocean. So, holding the Celtics under 50 points in the first half is a win in my book. Now, if you want to take a look at this game, let's just take a look at this real quick, and we'll break down some plays. We'll look at some of that inspiring defense. We'll also look at some of the terrible defense. But if you want to look at this game, I mean, you're right there, man. You're right there at the half. I mean, 35-45, but before they hit that final shot, you're 42-35. You make one layup. Scottie makes 1 3. You're 38-42. I'm not trying to cope here. I'm just letting you know, realistically, there's a world in which you're tied at halftime. You know what I mean? Like smoking open layups. That's not good defense by the Celtics. That's just bad concentration, dead legs. The Raptors have hit a wall. Okay. But in the second half, again, you try to stay connected and about as connected as you are 4 minutes into the third quarter, 59-44, and you're like, man, you better put together a run because this is about to be a bloodbath. And that's exactly what it was. 48-63. They get it close one more time to 15 points. That's as close as it will ever be again. Because next thing you look up, it's 107-59. The Raptors gave up 45 points in that third quarter. Now, again, positive. 45 points in the first half, 45 points in the third quarter. What happened in that third quarter? What the hell happened in that third quarter? Jason Tatum hit a whole bunch of threes. Okay, yeah, that's certainly part of it. Jason Tatum did hit a bunch of threes. I don't necessarily think Jason Tatum is the reason you lost this game. I think, honestly, your offense is the reason you lost this game because you hold the Celtics to 45 points in the first half and managed to be down by 10. That's just bad process. Okay. Now, in terms of positives, let's segment it. Okay. Here's some positives for you. I think Jacoby Walter played really well defensively. Negative, he shot 1 for 10. He was terrible, right? Positive, I think Scottie Barnes was a force inside defensively. I think he was a great defender in the gaps, helping, but he shot 1 for 8 from 3, 7 for 19 from the field, finished with just 16 points, team worst for the second straight night, negative 39 in 31 minutes, okay, and had 6 turnovers. Fun little Scottie stat. Since coming back from this injury, Scottie Barnes is averaging 4.5 turnovers per game. Since coming back from this injury, he's shooting 16% from 3. This is honestly very, very, very close to the disaster we saw in the second year where he took that big slump where everyone was questioning his work ethic. This right here is right around what he was doing then. He couldn't buy a bucket. He couldn't shoot. He had mobility issues, couldn't get downhill. The only thing that really seems to be working for Scottie is operating in the mid post, trying to pass out of those situations. But I mean, you're passing to Jacoby Walter. He's not looking. Yeah, every pass is your responsibility. You say they both splice the difference on that one. Whereas, it goes both ways. There's a pass, Scottie's running baseline. Davion Mitchell finds him. Scottie just drops the basketball. So it's like, on the one hand, is that Davion's turnover or Scottie's turnover? Probably Scottie's turnover. But then the Jacoby turnover is like, y'all should probably split the difference on that one. So it's been bad. Okay. Overall, it's been bad. They're crowding the defense. They did not let Jakob Poeltl do anything tonight. 3 for 4 from the field, 7 points, 13 rebounds as well for Jakob Poeltl in 30 minutes. But to anyone thinking Jakob Poeltl is the difference between you being like a great team and you being a terrible team, no, it's not. If you are going to draw the conclusion that RJ Barrett would have helped tonight, you are correct. RJ Barrett would have helped tonight offensively. Defensively, I think you probably give up 150 points if he's on the court. But you probably score 112. So it's a little less horrible, but it's like, it's still bad, right? He's not saving you from this. If Emmanuel quickly plays tonight, maybe that helps you. But it's like the broadcast keeps going on and on about like, oh, we need to see these starters play. We need to see these starters play. But it's like at some point, it's like beyond those starters, you don't have even league average replacement players. Chris Boucher was terrible tonight. Yo, oh my God. I thought when I saw him out in garbage time with 4 rookies that maybe the message would go off in Chris Boucher's head, but then I realized this is Chris Boucher. No message is about to go off in his head. He's going to be who he's going to be. He's going to shoot as many shots as he's going to take. The Raptors shot 25% from 3, but they took 43s. So credit where credit is due. They're taking them. They're just not making them. On the flip side, the Celtics shot 51.2% from 3. Which is ridiculous. The Celtics shot 54% from the field. The Raptors shot 31% from the field. And if you're thinking, hey, maybe they made it up by winning the turnover battle. Nope. The Raptors turned the ball over more as well. Maybe they made it up with fouls. Nope. The Raptors fouled more as well. Maybe they got in the paint, Rob. Maybe they scored more in the paint. Nope. They got outscored by 18 in the paint as well. They had nothing. They conceded more points off of turnovers. They gave up more fast break points. Their largest lead was 4. And I believe it was like in the first quarter, like in the opening minute of the first quarter. The Raptors held, this is interesting. The Raptors held the Boston Celtics scoreless for the first 4.5 minutes of this game. Not a single field goal. It was 8.5 minutes to go in the game when the Celtics scored their first points. This Now, I've agreed with Darko Rajaković on a lot of stuff. I do not agree with Jonathan Mobo collecting DNP CDs right now. I understand that you got to hold him accountable and he has not played well, but please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. When he got into the game in garbage time, he touched the paint relentlessly. Was it perfect? No. But he is a good defender. He is a really good defender. And your team does not have a lot of good defenders. And tonight, credit where credit is due. Here's another fun stat for you. Davion Mitchell, since that proclamation, y'all remember that tweet? Well, give me a W in the chat if you remember that tweet where I said Davion Mitchell is about to turn his season around after he and I went back and forth on X and he deleted his profile. And I was like, yo, right here, I think his season turns around right here. From that day to this day, Davion Mitchell is shooting 75% from three. Amazing. This is good. This is very good, especially if you're a contender looking for his services. Nice. Zigsaw Puzzle saying, W, I remember. I remember as well. I remember every single day. So every time he takes a three now, it's great. They're going under on the screen. You take it. No problem. Okay, what else is there to talk about in this game? The Boston Celtics. Tatum had 23. Nothing major. Off the bench, Peyton Pritchard killed him again. Terrible defense on him. Plus 36 off the bench. Their bench destroyed the Raptors tonight. Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Nehemias Keita, Luke Cornett. It was just an onslaught. Jordan Walsh in the fourth quarter. Just every single Celtic was a plus tonight, and every single Raptor was a negative. It is exactly as bad as it looks. Ulrich Shamshay, belated happy birthday to Ulrich. He scored his first point as a 19-year-old in the NBA on a almost dunk, which was kind of cool, which just ended up going in. AJ Lawson, who's been a bit of a sharpshooter, couldn't buy a bucket tonight in his 4 minutes in garbage time. Jonathan Mobo did not make a dent on the box score. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. But he just feels like he is a positive when he's on the court. Connective passing, touching the paint, good, smart reads. I'm sorry, man. The decision-making for the Raptors sometimes is just awful. You're missing point-blank layups. You're gifting them blow-bys. There was one particular play which we're going to look at with Chris Boucher, and oh my God, Chris Boucher, Kelly Olynyk, the defense is atrocious. And there's no reason for that. These are your vets. These are not your rookies. I would feel so differently about this, and I would be a lot more positive if your vets were keeping things together and it was Jacoby and Jamison Battle and Jamal Shed who were blowing these coverages, but they're not. Jacoby Walter was very competent defensively tonight. He made mistakes for sure, but it wasn't terrible at all for Jacoby defensively. He guarded up, he walled up pretty well. He was pesky. He turned guys in the, with the full court pressure in the backcourt. I think it was overall good. It was bad, man. Pretty much. Gagan Chahal saying Chris Boucher and Kelly play for the other team. Yeah, I'm not even trying to be rude, but it's like, yo, every time these guys touch the court, Matthew Bradley with the absolutely dumbest take. No, man, Scottie does not need to be traded. Scottie is having a really cold stretch right now, and it is really worth considering that shooting is impacted by injuries, and he has always been like this. If y'all remember the Philadelphia series where he came back, ankle, couldn't shoot. He got into the paint, he was hustling, he was rebounding, but he couldn't shoot. They left him, they dared him, he couldn't make a shot. Some players just do not deal well with lower body injuries when it comes to jump shooting. He's clearly one of them, and his jump shooting is massively compromised right now. They're leaving him open. They're daring him to shoot. He's taking the shots. He's not making the shots. You feel like Scottie had the game of his life if he goes 5 for 8 or 4 for 8 for 3. I'll let you know that last year, Scottie Barnes went 7 for 15 against the Celtics. They dared him to shoot then. He made him pay last year. This year, no dice. Okay, Scottie is shooting after this game probably 27% from 3 on the year. This is bad. This is really, really like the coldest shooting streak. But he's taking them. The volume is up. It's way up. Okay, the playmaking possessions, the volume is way up. Other players may have gotten these chances like Cade and Jalen Green. They got these chances in their rookie year and nobody cared. They're like, turn the ball over as much as you want, miss as much as you want. Scottie was busy being efficient on a good team in his rookie season. These reps are important. However, it is worth considering at this point, what is the value of these reps if you're being blown out by 50? I think that's like, I mean, it's a tough question to ask at this point, but it's like, are you really getting better when you're getting blown out like this? Let's take a look at some of the plays tonight. I think there was some good stuff. Okay. Let's take a look at how the Raptors held the Celtics scoreless. Look at this defense by Scottie Barnes. I mean, this, y'all, like, I mean, you box score watching casual mother. Watch this. This is not easy. Okay. When you are compromised laterally, like, this is not easy. And that is a brilliant contest. Take a look at the next play. I mean, this is great. Look at his hands, you know, sitting in the gap here. Jacoby Walter correctly is going to push him towards Scottie into Yak. And Scottie's just going to reach, pull it away, and then boom. Now, you got to make this. This is an open layup. Okay? Again, 3-0. You're up. Davion Mitchell got the start tonight at point. Instead, you make this pass trying to be cute, and you turn the basketball over. That's crazy work. But I'm going to say this. 8 minutes and 30 seconds, the Celtics had not scored. And I tell you, Scottie Barnes was a huge part of that. Davion was a big part of that defense as well. I think his defense was very competent tonight. Now, take a look at disaster class number 1, which is Kelly Olynyk. First of all, pointed us out in the last game too. You cannot drop this much to a player who has proven for all year that he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league, that he's one of the highest volume three-point shooters in the league. I mean, I'm not saying he's Steph Curry, but you better start guarding him like he is Steph Curry, because this guy will pull. He does not need daylight. And Kelly Olynyk backing up this much when Scottie Barnes is already back, you got to read the court, man. You got help. You got to force him off the line. You got to force drive here. I understand it's cross match. I understand it's transition defense, but you can't be this stupid. Like, you're a vet. You're a smart basketball player. You cannot do this. This is just, you know, it's just terrible. Now, he misses it. So you're like, what are you complaining about? I don't care. He missed it. He's going to make that more often than he's going to miss it. Now here, Scottie Barnes is going to sail this up to Kelly Olynyk. Ah, look, it's number 41 again. Yo, I'm not even trying to be rude with Kelly Olynyk because I genuinely like this guy. But what the hell is this? You must take this shot. You must take this shot. This is a good defense that you're playing up against, and they are surrendering an open three to you, a very competent jump shooter. You cannot pass this up. Instead, what do? You pass it to Bruce Brown, who is a significantly worse three-point shooter than you. The only way this would have ever made sense is if you pass this up after a drive. So you take 2 steps into the paint, then you pass it out to Bruce Brown. But even then, it makes no sense because Bruce Brown's not a good three-point shooter. So the only way this makes sense is if he passes out to Emmanuel Quickley. But Emmanuel Quickley is in street clothes, so this makes no sense. This is just a dumb basketball play. And now Bruce Brown is like, hey, let me try to do something. And I mean, okay, fine. What the Don't get cute with it. Just go up. That's Peyton Pritchard. That's not Hakeem Olajuwon. What the hell are you doing trying to up and under reverse it? Like, just go into him. He's out of position. He's gonna foul you. Play it up. This up and under bullshit. The Raptors just got way too cute with their offense tonight. It was just nuts. All right. Speaking of Canadian veterans who are making way more money than they should be, let's talk about Chris Boucher for a second. Scottie Barnes, spin, nice, dusts Jason Tatum on that. Passes to Chris Boucher, never met a shot he didn't like. He's going to get chased off the three-point line and drive straight into 4 defenders. No problem. Chris Boucher can do this. And who does he get blocked by? The guard, Derek White, phenomenal defender. You show the ball, they're going to poke the ball. How many times did that happen tonight? Now here comes Scottie Barnes is going to force this miss. Okay? Here, watch this. Let me just slow this down for y'all. So here, Tatum comes into the paint. Kelly is doing the right thing. And here's Scottie Barnes, this contest from this guy who apparently had a terrible game, is going to force the miss. Things you miss in real time, right? Don't take that for granted. That was a layup from an MVP candidate, and he missed it, largely because And I mean, look, you want to look at Jason Tatum's averages against the Raptors. Trust me, Scottie Barnes has a very big part to do with why he does not do well against the Raptors. And here comes Luke Cornett, because if Scottie's doing that, someone's got to be back here getting this rebound, boxing out Luke Cornett. Scottie can't block the shot. And like right here, you send 3 to the ball. Who's tagging Luke Cornett here? Someone's got to. You cannot just watch this. Ending possessions is a defensive rebound, not giving up offensive rebounds like this bullshit. Now, is he out of bounds when he passes that? No, he's not. He gets it out. It comes out to Peyton Pritchard, who's not going to get cute with the basketball. He's going to pass this off at some point to Luke Cornett. Now watch Chris Boucher on this. Okay. Just watch Chris Boucher this entire play. Y'all see him right in the middle of the court, right? Quite possibly one of the dumbest basketball plays you've ever seen. You turn your back to your man, watch Luke Cornett for no fucking reason whatsoever, and then get back cut by Jason Tatum. And then, by the way, that was not an and one, but that should have been an and one. You give up the foul as well. Watch that again. I don't want to hear anyone. I don't give a shit how much you like his basketball hustle. I don't want to hear anybody trying to tell me that I'm wrong about Chris Boucher, bro. I really don't. Because this shit is inexcusable from an NBA veteran. This is grade school stuff. And here you are, bumping the bottom half. Jason Tatum wanted a foul on this, and he has a point. You fouled him. That's crazy. That is crazy. Now, I put sad piano music to this because this pretty much this play pretty much encapsulates 2024 for me. Here, Scottie is going to get another contested rebound, and then thinking, here's Jacoby, and as he's throwing this, Jacoby turns his head. Like, I understand this from both sides. This was a miscommunication, but right here, he looks at Scottie, and right here, you need to be looking for the pass. You cannot just run without a thought. Jamal Shed is doing the right thing. He's looking at Scottie, right? You got Matt saying that is on Scottie. I'll agree, but at the same time, Jacoby looked at him. So here, it's just a little bit of a delay in processing. It was like a glitch in the matrix there, right? But it's like, that shit happened last game with Jakob Poeltl as well, where Jakob Poeltl just kind of ducks his head back. And it's like, yes, at some point, if you are going to pass the basketball, if you're going to handle the basketball as much as Scottie's handling the basketball, you're going to turn the ball over more. This much, though, 4.5 a game for the last 6 games is crazy work. However, I will say this. If you play with me, look at Scottie. He is just screaming in slow motion there for dramatic effect. If I play basketball with you and I throw you a pass and you drop it, or I throw you a pass, you look at me, I throw you the pass and you turn your head, I'm literally never going to pass you the basketball again. I'll be petty like that. I would never pass you the basketball again. Okay? This shit is frustrating as hell. Now, good play. Enough of the bad plays. Let's take a look at one good play. And this is, the stuff that we talk about. Now, a screen here should open up a Jakob Poeltl possession. Because Peyton Pritchard has read the scouting report on Davion Mitchell, he's going to go under on this. And Davion Mitchell is correctly going to take this shot. Now, it's not an open shot because he dilly-dallies a little bit too much there. But he makes it. He makes the shot. And thus, capping off 2 for 2, 75%. Well, actually, that was 1 for 1 at that point, but he made a second one as well. So, yeah. Take a look at another good half. Now, it's interesting to note that it was at Raptors Spaces during halftime. And at the end, everyone was asked who had spoken, is this going to be a win? And I said, nope. And then a few people said, yeah, it'll be close. Someone said it's going to be a 2-point win. That's what it was looking like to someone, I guess. Shout outs to everyone who was hopeful. This was a really nice play by Scottie, and it was not the first time or the last time he would do that against Drew Holiday. Feeling the defender, going the other way, that's a really tough shot. That's a really tough shot. But because of the physics of Scottie, wide shoulders, right? Wide shoulders, having that advantage of size. If you're going to guard him with Drew Holiday, I mean, Drew Holiday is a former defensive player of the year for a reason. I have seen many big wings try to do this against him. I've seen Shea try to do this against him and fail miserably. But there are certain matchups that just aren't for everyone, and I don't think Drew Holiday can guard Scottie Barnes. So here, again, feels the pressure, leans, boom. Nice. That was crafty. That was crafty. And the final play, which, I mean, was not the final play, one of the final plays. This one's from garbage time. And this is Jonathan Mobo, right? And this is a big reason why I don't want Jonathan Mobo in the doghouse, right? Now here, Neemias Keita is going to turn around and Mobo is just going to rip it. Boom. Hand is part of the basketball, so that is legal play. And he just takes it away fighting. Right. And again, if you watch the offensive process, you're like, all right, 0 points, 0 turnovers, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. Jonathan Mobo didn't do jack shit. But on the other end, you know, paint touches, relentless, good decision making, and plays like this, you know. I wrote Chris Boucher is currently out there in garbage time with 4 rookies. He was until AJ Lawson got into the game. Message sent, check. Message delivered, nope. Bad. Ulrich with the jam. I think should be a question mark on the jam. It could have been a really nice play, you know, to cap off a really bad loss. But I mean, he makes it. He makes it. All right. Okay, that's where we're at. That is where we are at. There's 300 of you in here. Please hit the like. Do I have facts? Do I have some regrets saying that I will go down with this ship? Is saying it a little bit easier than doing it in theory, doing it in practice? No, I'm good. I'm good. Look, there's a couple of wrong conclusions I think you can draw from this game that this is on Darko. I think you played the game plan about as well as you could. You just didn't execute. You know, you drew up a game plan to stop them. I think there were some good moments defensively. You played a really, really good, competent first half. But the defense with Kelly Olynyk back in the lineup has been so bad. So if you want to roast somebody right now, you roast the man who decided this dude was worth $25 million based on how he played last year. I understand the theory of Kelly, but in today's NBA, that was a classic overpay. Now, the only thing that was left to be seen by me and hopefully most of you was how much of an overpay. Was it a 20% overpay where you should have paid him 10 but you paid him 13? Was it a 50% overpay? Or was it what it is right now, which feels like, I don't know, a 400 to 500% overpay based on how he's played? Kelly Olynyk is a valuable end of bench role player right now for someone out there in a team with excellent spacing and excellent defense, like maybe New York. He might do okay. He might actually provide something of significant value. He might be a really good connective playmaker. However, at this age, there's no upside on that contract. There's no potential baked into that contract. And if you knew you were tearing it down, why do this? To retain the asset? What asset? I got news for you. Not everything you own is an asset. Your car that guzzles oil, that's not an asset. Your primary residence that costs you $8,000 a year, that's not an asset. As much as you think it is, it's a liability as much as it is an asset. Right now, players like Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk are proving to be massive miscalculations by the Toronto Raptors. And these are both players you asked for. You traded for them. You asked for them. You may say we settled for them to get what we really wanted. But it's like, Okay, why? Why not move them sooner before you tank their value? You know, the Toronto Raptors could really learn something from the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets have done something very similar to the Toronto Raptors, which is they've taken on a whole bunch of undesirable big contracts from other teams. They took on Dorian Finney-Smith in the Kyrie Irving trade. Check. He's played pretty well for them. Now they moved him off for 3 second-round picks. They took on Cameron Johnson as part of the Kevin Durant trade. Beggars can't be choosers. Maybe they weren't the biggest fans of Cam, but they thought he was a decent asset. They have done a great job rehabbing his value as well as an injury prone guy. And right now, he might go for 2 first-round picks. Dennis Schroeder at the deadline last year. Dennis Schroeder, kind of a misfit in Toronto, didn't want to come off the bench. They're like, hey, we have a starting spot open for you. What the hell is there to lose? Ben Simmons, similar situation. Now, Ben Simmons, obviously not an asset, came back as more of a salary dump in the James Harden deal. That is a massive miscalculation on their part. But other than that, they've pretty much done really well. Dorian Finney-Smith, uh, Dennis Schroeder, all these players have been flipped for decent cap capital. Mikal Bridges, again, like they flipped him for 6. The Nets are doing something that the Raptors aren't, which is they're identifying that their pieces aren't as good as people think they are. They're putting them in good positions to succeed. They're putting them in a decent offense so that they can look good. And then they're shipping them off so that other people can realize that they're lemons. And I mean, I'm not even that comment is not really directed towards Cam Johnson. It's more directed to Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder and all these guys. Dennis Schroeder is not the solution anywhere. Trust me, he's not. Okay, he's been on, I don't know, like 8 teams in like 7 years or something like that. Like he's been on a lot of teams. I mean, he's not the solution. He's a perfectly league average backup point guard. I mean, if you're talking about Dorian Finney-Smith shooting career best, from everywhere, yeah, is that going to keep up with the Lakers? We'll see, but I don't think it will. So this is what the Raptors should have tried to do. If you're going to exhibit Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk and Chris Boucher, at the very least, make them efficient, put them in position to succeed. You can't be. It's like at some point you're like, if you're Darko Rajaković, have you just taken on too many things? Are you aiming in too many places? Right? Norm is better than Gary Trent. He was always better than Gary Trent Jr. So it's just a really, really tough product to swallow right now, right? Pause. I mean, you're looking at this team, they're getting blown out by 50, 40, 30 every other night. And you're like, I really don't see a path to being a playoff team next year. I really don't know how this is supposed to happen. But if you've played any level of basketball, you know that there's just a stage of the season when things start to unravel. And for, to those of you who've played, I don't know, AAU, Division 2, even if you played, OBA or whatever locally here, that when you start out like 2-7, everyone just kind of checks out a little bit, right? It's really, really difficult to stay motivated to try to save your season when it's very clear that the math is like your season's not worth saving, right? It's difficult. Guys start to go one-on-one a little bit more. Then you start seeing those little huddles at the end of the bench where everyone's kind of low-key talking shit. It's human nature. It's actually very human nature. Now, the Raptors came out this season and they had a really good plan, and I think with every single injury, the first one to RJ in preseason, then to Quickly, then to Scottie, you just started to see these like sort of flies start to fall, right? Then you see Bruce Brown. You're probably sitting there thinking, why hasn't Bruce Brown played yet? He's been largely positive for the Raptors. He's certainly been a lot more positive than the players who are playing ahead of him. And you're looking at Bruce Brown and you're like, this guy coming back a month sooner might have helped this team, right? A little bit, right? You're looking at Emmanuel Quickly, who's, facing that Tommy John, the UCL injury. And you're like, shoot, he could miss 40 games. He genuinely could miss 40 games with that injury. I mean, we're not getting any clear updates on the timeline because this is the Toronto Raptors. How dare I expect that we get clear updates on player injuries from this Raptors, brass. But you start to look around if you're these veterans on this team and you're like, shit, I'm not going to be here next year. If you're Bruce Brown, what are you playing for? You think this is ethics? You think this is pride? He's got an expiring contract, and it's impossible when you are this bad. And the Raptors are bad. 7-26 after today. It's impossible when you start to look at the season, you start to look around, you start to, get calls from your agent like, hey, they're trying to shop you, et cetera, et cetera. It's really difficult to try and invest in the moment. Now, the Toronto Raptors are going to go into 2025 game against Brooklyn, in which, certainly I'm praying for a loss, but at the same time, am I praying for a loss? Because I don't really want to be associated with the history of losing like 25 straight. On the one hand, this is not a good team. The Brooklyn Nets are not a great team. They're going to probably going to buy out D'Angelo Russell for the last I checked, and if they haven't already. And they're holding some guys out. They're clearly not serious about this season. They're probably trying to get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. They're probably trying to hold some starters out tomorrow, saying, "Hey, it's New Year's. Go celebrate with your family." So the Raptors will have an opportunity tomorrow if they really want to. If they play like they did today in the first half for two halves tomorrow, they will smoke the Nets. The issue here isn't about beating the Nets. It's about, when does this team become healthy? When does this team become good? And it's really difficult, man. When you're down and out like this, when you're getting blown out like this, it's so difficult to see anything other than more of this. Because it kind of goes against our minds that when you're getting beat by 50, how are you ever supposed to win these games? Need I remind you that the Toronto Raptors, without Scottie Barnes, if I'm not mistaken, went up against the Boston Celtics and forced almost overtime? Was it overtime that they lost in overtime to the Celtics and Jason Tatum hit that buzzer beater? Was it overtime? Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is a team that you've played competently or competitively many times. This is not an unbeatable team. You just have to be connected. You have to be playing for something. You have to be playing to win. Basketball must be played to win. It has to be played to win. What else are you trying to do? What is the messaging in the locker room right now? Hey, guys, let's try not to get blown out by 45. Well, fuck, man. That's tough. That's a tough message. Hey, guys, let's try to not be the worst team in the league. That's not an inspiring message. The problem is the Raptors do have a lot of winners. They have a lot of winners who are losing for the first time in a really long time. And even for Scottie Barnes, who has progressively lost more games every single year that he's been in the NBA, this is the first time he's actively participating in this much losing. Need I remind you, when Scottie Barnes came back from that facial injury, the Raptors, I think, had a winning record, or they were 7-6 or 6-7 with him. And then they were like 2-9 without him. Well, now he's participating in this losing streak. He's playing every single night and they're still losing. I don't think Scottie's lost this many games in which he's actually played in his life. This has got to be wearing on him as well. And it's losing like this, especially how they're losing. The loss against OKC, terrible loss, right? Terrible loss. I was there. It was awful. The loss against Brooklyn, awful loss. I mean, when you really start to think about just how badly this team has lost and how many times they've lost, it is just really, it starts to wear on your mind. You're just like, oh my God. Hang on one second. Let me just, let me see here. So the Toronto Raptors schedule. Okay. So Oklahoma City was a blowout. So that's one blowout. Then you're competitive against Dallas and New York, somewhat close, 7 5-point losses. You lose by 10 to Miami. Then you lose by 1 to Chicago. Then the floodgates are opened. You lose by 7 to Brooklyn, although that was much, much worse at some point. Wait, was that the game they were actually up? Hang on, let me just double check that. My memory might be going shit here. Yes, that was the game where you were up going into the fourth quarter, and then you just evaporate in the fourth quarter. And the same thing happens against Houston. You're up in the fourth quarter and you just fall apart. The last 4 games since those 2 close losses against Brooklyn and Houston, in which you were fighting, you were competitive, you were in those games in the fourth quarter, has been a wire to wire blowout type of situation, right? The Raptors against the Knicks, pretty much in the second quarter, it was over and it never, ever came back. Never came back. Against Memphis, wire to wire blowout. Atlanta, wire to wire blowout. Boston, wire to wire blowout. So it's like you got 1, 2, 3, 3 blowouts in a row, 4 blowouts in a row. That's tough. 4 blowouts in a row is when coaches get fired. 4 blowouts in a row is when trades happen. Okay. 4 blowouts in a row is when team meetings happen. Now, what do you say in a team meeting? Hey guys, we gotta rally together and go make the playoffs. Yo, these are only players who ever played for championships. I got news for you. Jamal Shed has never thought about anything but a national championship. None of these guys have thought about anything but state championships and national championships in their lives. It's really difficult to get your head around the concept of professional losses. And, kudos to the Raptors. They did it early. They got into a whole bunch of games that they weren't supposed to be in. And right now, it's just going the other way. Now you're getting blown out by way more. So it's just the opposite is adjusting. The numbers aren't any worse than they should be. They're really not. I mean, you're a bottom 5 defense. Okay, for a little while there, you overperformed. You got up to 22nd. Congratulations. Boom, you're back down to 26. The defense since Kelly Olynyk has gotten back has been abysmal, though. Let me just check Kelly Olynyk and when he came back. Did he come back against Houston? Let me just check here. When the hell did Kelly Olynyk come back? Okay, let me just check here. Kelly Olynyk has played. Oh, I am stupidly mistaken. Okay, no. Kelly Olynyk came back against Dallas. So Kelly Olynyk is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So Kelly Olynyk has played in. We are 0-10 with Kelly Olynyk in the lineup this year. Yo, that's bad. That is bad. That is really bad. And he's shooting 42% from the field and 45% from 3. Holy shit. Did not realize that prior to tonight, he was shooting 45% from 3. He has a positive defensive box plus minus somehow. I have no idea how that's happening. He's averaging 7.5 points. But yo, if you were watching these games and you think Kelly Olynyk is good, yo, you wish. No, he is not. If that second year was a team option, maybe, because he'd be worth it as an expiring. But at this point, and you know what's one thing I'll say, Kelly is not a dumb basketball player. He is not a dumb basketball player. I've watched this guy for a very, very long time. Okay. I remember watching him. I want to say he was like 12 years old, 11 years old when I watched Kelly Olynyk play for the first time. This is not a bad basketball player. This is not a dumb basketball player. In fact, I wanted this basketball player on the Raptors forever. He has not played well. He cannot play center. He has proven it many times. He's just not a rim protector. He can't do that for you. And you just don't have that rim protection right now. It's nowhere on your roster. The closest thing you might have is Ulrich, maybe Jakob in stretches. So you got to play Kelly with Jakob. Again, if your goal is to trade Kelly, then you must play Kelly with Jakob. If your goal is to play Bruce Brown, then you cannot play Bruce Brown with Chris Boucher. It's just like if your goal is to trade Chris Boucher, well, good fucking luck, because teams are not stupid. Okay. If this is a tank, it's going a little too well. If this is by design, I'd ask whose design? Who designed a 50-point blowout loss like this? Why design a 50-point blowout loss like this? What is the point of it? And if this is not by design, if this is not by some sort of, construction, then what is the point of this? What is the point of playing like this? Now, positives, there are some positives. A positive is Tankathon. Tankathon is a positive right now. The Toronto Raptors are doing a phenomenal job at tanking. They're really bad. Okay. How bad? They're almost as bad as Charlotte. They've lost 11 straight. This is one of the longest losing streaks in Raptors history. It is bad. And I think naturally people are very, very inclined to feel like 12, 15, 18 losses is a really, really bad thing. I don't think the Raptors are this bad. I think they're playing horribly, but I don't think they're this bad. I didn't think the Milwaukee Bucks were as bad as they started out. It's possible for a professional basketball team to just play terribly for a stretch. This is a team that burned itself out. This is a team that practices. Now, let me throw this out to something that I think most people who play video games can understand. Y'all ever played NBA 2K? I'm sure most of us have, right? If you're a basketball fan, you haven't played NBA 2K at this point. It's like that's a choice. But I think most of us have played some version of Dynasty mode, my GM mode, or just the season out, right? And there always used to be this thing that I would do when I was trying to tank, which is I would turn all the intensity up on everything. I would make sure that all the training intensity was super high so that all the players would always be tired. They would always be gassed as shit. And then I would lower the minutes down, which the Raptors haven't done, because if you didn't lower the minutes down, then all the injuries would happen. And that was the perfect tank. You overtrain, you underperform, right? Most NBA teams don't practice like the Raptors practice. That's something that I don't think people understand. Dead legs are a part of basketball. You can't shoot when your legs don't have momentum. You get your jump shot from your legs. If you're a jump shooter, especially if you're a long distance jump shooter, trust me, it's coming from your legs. Steph Curry is not doing two-a-days right now. It's just not, that's not where he's at. But because this is a young roster, the Raptors do practice a lot. They play groups. Guys like Ulrich and Jacoby and Jamal Shead, they are playing so much basketball. These games, however, have turned into a bit of a background. They're not important. In the end, the development is important. The skills are important. The basketball IQ advancement is important. The film study is important. Making these players better is important. But when you run players into the ground this way, when you employ a defensive strategy which requires players who are not good defenders like Grady Dick. I mean, look at how well Grady Dick started out. Look at every single player on this team, and you will see this happening, with the exception of Davion Mitchell, which you're seeing the opposite. But the other players, Scottie, started out pretty well, not shooting, but playing really well. And then suddenly we saw the dip happen, right? Injuries. Okay. What about Grady Dick? How bad has Grady Dick been recently? Pretty bad. What about Ochai Baji? Once, the salvation of playing great, he has strung together so many bad games in a row at this point. It makes you wonder if the beginning part was even real, if it even happened, because it feels so long ago. He hasn't been bad relative to his standards, but he's been significantly worse in December than he was in November. Way worse. So you start to look at that. You're like, RJ Barrett, is he fading a little bit too? That jump shot feels like it's not going in at all. So it's like you just have a lot of players who are super dead ass tired. And you know what happens when you're tired? Short jumpers. You know what else happens when you're tired? You don't finish strong. When you're just damn exhausted all the time, you just don't finish strong. So if this is the tank, as I said, it's going a little too well. Because at this point, you play like this, you're not going to beat Brooklyn. If you play a second half as sorry as this one, you're not going to beat Brooklyn. They could try to lose and still win. So at this point, I feel like there's a lot of people who are going to panic. I'm not one of them. I'm not panicking at all. I'm not selling on Scottie. I'm not selling on Jacoby because he had a cold shooting night. I'm not selling on Grady because he's been having a tough month. I'm not selling on RJ necessarily for any reason other than the reason that I would sell on him, which is his defensive, weaknesses are trash. Like his defense is just bad. Kelly Olynyk, again, I'll remain hopeful. He's not going anywhere. I'm pretty sure he's not going anywhere on that contract. So you just hope that it's just a back issue at this point that's holding him back defensively. I do think Kelly can be a top 11, top 10 rotation guy for a decent team right now. I think he could help the Thunder right now. I think he's better than some of the guys they're playing. So again, it's just kind of like comes down to lineup synergies and exhaustion, right? Now, here's the thing. If you're going to live and die by wins and losses this year, you're going to die every time. Because this is not a team that, based on the injuries that they've had, you're just not going to win a lot of games this year. It's just the reality, man. It's the reality of the situations. You're not going to win the games that you think you're supposed to win. And you're not going to win them largely because you're just not healthy. And there was no depth on this roster. There was no backup big to, offset any, shortfall. You have played small. Every game you're small. You are starting a 6'4" at best power forward. Why? Why not play big? Why not start Kelly Olynyk? Why at no point would you start Kelly Olynyk? You think you'd be worse? You definitely are not worse. You are not going to be worse with Kelly Olynyk starting. You might be better. You might be so much better. But then you say, what's the gap between Ochai and Kelly? It's not a big gap. It's not a big gap. But the gap is Ochai at power forward versus Kelly at power forward with those other four players. That's the gap, right? Even tonight, you would be better off going Scottie at the 1, Jacoby at the 2, or Ochai at the 3, Kelly at the 4, Yak at the 5. You actually give yourself a chance to win that game. You could win that game potentially. And you play Jonathan Mobile and Bruno Fernando off the bench instead of Chris Boucher, and then you bring Davion Mitchell off the bench and hit his couple threes. You could actually, in Jameson battle, now you could actually win with Bruce Brown. Now you have a game plan to actually, compete a little bit. I'm not overselling Kelly. I'm just saying if you play players out of position, you will mess up everything, right? And again, it's like if I ask Shaq to be my point of attack defender and navigate screens, I'm going to give up 185 points per game. It doesn't mean Shaq's a bad defender. It just means he can't do the thing that I'm asking him to do. It's the same thing with Kelly Olynyk. If you're going to ask Kelly Olynyk to run the break for you, well, I mean, there's limitations to that. If you're going to ask him to man the paint for you as a low man, there's a lot of limitations for that too. It's going to be an open turnstile, and everybody else knows the scouting report. Some of these guys on the other team played with Kelly Olynyk. They understand who Kelly is as a defender. They understand he's not blocking jack shit at the rim. They understand he's going to be a little bit compromised when it comes to rebounding. They know that. They're not stupid. So, look, I don't think this season is going to imprint on next season the way that some people think it is. I think some people are like, oh my God, this is so bad. Next season is going to be more of the same. A top 5 pick is not going to save this. You don't need a top 5 pick to save this. You really don't. What you need is a reset. What you need is a different organizational philosophy. What you need is probably a little less practicing and a little bit more juice in those legs. What you need is a better start. What you need is better health. What you need is a better Scottie. And Scottie has not been good the last 4 games. Someone asked me today on the panel, have you been voting Scottie for All-Star? And it's like, yeah, I am, but I'm not pushing for it. It's like I'll vote because he's my favorite player, but I'm certainly not about to come out here and be like, yo, vote for this guy for All-Star. I don't think he's an All-Star this year. Right now, I do not believe he's an All-Star based on how he's playing, based on how the Raptors are playing. Last year, I did. Last year, I thought he was an All-Star. That's why I pushed for it super hard. I'm not just because he's my favorite player doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and tell you that he's an All-Star. And just in case you're wondering, no, RJ is not an All-Star either. So you can shut the hell up with that one. Okay. No. ISO Swabi saying Scottie is still obviously still injured and you want him to shoot threes. Definitely not his play style. Sure. Nah, big trade before they axed Darko. Did too much development for Grady, Ochai, and incoming young guns. P said you said the same shit last year. What did I say last year? Yeah, development doesn't happen overnight. Did the players get better? Yeah, they did. They did get better. Joshua Avery made with a really good point here. He says people forgetting that the 2020 and 2021 Thunder had to exist to get this year's Thunder. Sure. Yeah. At some point though, you do need to convert. You need to convert on some of those top 5 picks. You need to hit on those lottery picks. You need to develop them. You need to, exercise or employ an offense that makes sense. I have no idea if the Raptors see Scottie Barnes as a long-term, primary initiator. I do know that he's doing a lot more of that by necessity. And maybe that's not necessarily his most ultimate strength right now. And I can tell you his most ultimate strength, and he's not doing it. And I could probably tell you that a lot of players on this team, their ultimate strength, they're not doing it. I mean, the Raptors are living and dying by mid-range shots. They're taking a lot of mid-range shots. I mean, I'm not just talking about those crazy ones that Chris Boucher takes. I'm talking about the ones by design, the ones that Grady takes, the one that Jacoby takes, the ones that sometimes Mobo takes, the ones that Davion and Jamal Shed take. I'm talking about the one specifically that, well, RJ does not really take mid-range shots. He's pretty much cut that out of his game. But you have a lot of mid-range shots. The Raptors are bottom 3 in terms of 3 points attempted. So, I mean, that's tough. We got one caller, and then we're probably going to call it a night. I believe that we will probably do a I don't know if I have the energy for this at this point. I mean, honestly, like on the one hand, my team is getting blown up by 40 every night. It's kind of tough to keep my brave face on and just keep preaching patience. On the other hand, my dog is going through hell right now. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to spend New Year's, but let me know after this video goes live if you want a particular topic that we can do for a live stream at midnight. I would certainly, I would certainly like to spend the night with this, open the new year with this community. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, all right. Lil John is sad. What's up?
How you doing, man?
I'm all right. What's up?
So yeah, I wanted to have a conversation about Darko and later on Scottie, but more so on Darko because listen, we can talk about how much he's developed certain guys, right? Like
Mhm.
Ochai guys. We can say how much he developed Grady, even though Grady was a lottery pick and he was basically going to be the player he was.
That's not true. I don't think that's true, but you can go ahead.
Uh, I want to I want us to be getting guys that don't need to be developed. Like I'm watching the Houston Rockets and I'm seeing the fight that their players are being instilled by their coach, and it's like, again, I know they're in a different level of, like, they're at a different space right now where they're competing and they're trying to win games, but I just don't think Darko is going to be the coach that we have when we're going to be winning. Even though he's developing and listen, I like some of the stuff he does on offense, some of the wrinkles, the spacing, the ball movement. It's fresh air compared to what we had with Nick Nurse. But are you not watching Ime Udoka and thinking, wow, man, that guy could have been our coach?
I'm watching Ime Udoka and Jordi Fernandez, knowing that I damn well pushed for both of them to be our coach. If you recall. Do you recall?
Uh,
I was pushing for Ime Udoka to be our coach literally when Nick Nurse was still employed. That's how early. He was the first person that I championed when I found out that he didn't want to be in Toronto because of the liberal media and the bullshit that they do. I moved my target over to Jordy. I also advocated for Becky Hammond. There's a lot of coaches that I pushed for. I think my loudest advocation was by far for Ime, and I stick with that. I mean, if you're asking me, Ime was my number one choice. Jordy was my number two choice at the time. Darko was probably my fourth or fifth choice, but again, I'm happy with him.
I
Not
get,
because
I
we
don't.
have him, but because I learned so much more about him afterwards. And I was like, I get why the Raptors went this direction. But yeah, I didn't push for Darko. And he's from my city, he's from my country, and I didn't push for him. But largely, I'm perfectly fine with him. I'm perfectly fine. I have no complaints.
Like, usually when teams are rebuilding, they have there's like rebuilding coaches and there's winning coaches. I understand maybe Udoka's like, I don't know if I want to rebuild for the next 5-6 years or however
I
long it
definitely don't
takes.
think that was it. He went to the Rockets.
He did go, but then also Houston is a free agent market, and again, I don't really understand the Jimmy Butler play.
Historically, they haven't really been a free agent market. They ended up signing Fred VanVleet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay,
Well,
we could have had Fred VanVleet for the same amount as well. We chose not to. But yeah,
I mean, they're in talks with Jimmy Butler. Again, I don't really understand that, but people want to play in Houston more than they want to play in Toronto, for what it's worth. I'm just watching Darko and just some of the stuff that he's letting certain players on the team, enabling them to do. Like, I just don't think most other coaches would be doing this, right? The Scottie half court threes. That's just not.
yeah,
That's just not like good thought process. I don't really understand. Like, I understand saying, okay, take threes, take the open threes,
I
but
got
the
you.
pull up threes,
Hmm.
what are those for? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really understand that.
I mean, it's process. You got to take at sometimes you got to take what the defense is giving you, and he's got to get comfortable taking those pull up threes. If they're going to dare him to shoot those, and in his second year he wouldn't take those shots. I'm happy that he's taking them now, and if he makes a
You're
couple,
happy that he's taking pull up threes?
yeah, I am.
Pull up
I am.
threes.
Yep. Pull up threes, because catch and shoot threes from the corner are
But he's
what he.
always going to get open threes, catch and shoot, because he's going to be
Well,
left open.
consider this on the job training. Okay, like at some point you gotta get he's got to get comfortable. I don't know why people think he's LeBron. He's not LeBron. He's not going to ever be that type of player. So he needs to model himself more in the Jason Tatum mold. And Jason Tatum takes a lot of pull up threes. Okay, like that's the closest thing I can say. Like the
Jason
Raptors,
Tatum was a 40% 3-point shooter as a rookie.
was he 40% as a rookie?
He started off. I don't know if you remember. He was leading the NBA in 3-point percentage like 3 months into the season. Jason Tatum was a terrific 3-point shooter.
You're a terrific 3-point shooter. Yes, he was. And for the last,
He's actually declined, actually,
sure.
but
Would you
his
say,
shot attempts have gotten
see,
harder.
this is the
The
problem.
shots have gotten
He
harder.
hasn't declined. He's taken very, very difficult shots. He is a much better shooter than Scottie. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is shooting can be taught. There are players who came into the
Yes,
league as
yeah,
not great
I
shooters
agree.
and they became better shooters. Kawhi became a better shooter. Okay. So what I'm saying is at some point, you go the DeMar route where you stick to what you're good at and you don't do anything else, or you go the Scottie route, which is you try new things and you fail spectacularly at them. I'm proud of him for taking those shots. Obviously, nobody wants to go 1 for 10. He doesn't want to go 1 for 10. But on the nights where he goes 7 for 15 against Boston, people still had complaints. So I can only imagine what those people are screaming about now. Anyways, man, any final thoughts?
I don't know. I just think, listen, I'm a fan of your work, but I think you're just enabling Scotty and the team for just. I just don't agree with pull up threes from a guy who's shooting that percentage. Like that's just not.
Well, he's shooting that percentage because he's taking the bad shots. You can't remove the context from, like, you know what I
But
mean?
it's all
Like
process.
if okay, like
They're
here's
not
my
process oriented. Like it's about processing
here's the thing,
results.
man. I mean, look, there's two worlds. Okay, there's a world in which we try to appeal to you, and there's a world in which we try to appeal to Darko. We try to appeal to you. He takes catch and shoots from the corner, the easiest shot in the game. He stands still,
I
teams
mean, it
dare him
doesn't
to
have to be
shoot. He
from the
makes
corner.
okay catch and shoot from above the break, but basically not self-generated threes. So the question is, would you rather Scottie Barnes shoot 34% and 95% of his threes are catch and shoot, not self-created? Or would you rather he shoot 28% and 80% of his threes are self-generated and of the hardest variety because they're from the furthest distance? I mean, bro, he is pulling up from like 28 feet on the regular. And the nights where he's making them, you're like, whoa. And the nights that he's missing them, it's like bad. But like at this point, if you revert him back to what he was doing in the second year, he makes a lot more threes. This is a progression of a shooter. You have to go through this as a shooter. You have to. Now you could say, why not do this in practice? They're doing this in practice. He's practicing these shots. Look, I'm not saying he's a great 3-point shooter now. I'm just saying hold this criticism for a couple years. Hold on to it. If it continues to be this bad, if you don't see this move up to like 33-34% next year and the volume sustains, the last thing I want to see right now is him start becoming passive and just avoiding that. That I cannot stand that. That I will complain about. This makes it's a make or miss league, man. Steph Curry's gone 0 for 10 for. I understand Scottie's not Steph Curry. I understand that. But you have to understand that this guy went 22 years of his life without ever being a high volume 3-point shooter. Trying to turn into one now is difficult. It's going to be an ugly process. Okay. Jason Tatum went through this process in grade school. Scottie has to go through it now. That's it. Anyways, man, have a happy new year.
Yeah, same.
Yep. Peace, man. Stagger, what is up? Happy almost new year. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
First of all, keep doing what you're doing, buddy. I know this is tough.
It's not tough. I mean,
I
working at a coal mine is tough.
Yeah,
I'm podcasting about my favorite team. I'm happy.
You can just see the frustration in your face. There's no question that's frustrating right now. I got a couple of things.
Sure.
I'm on the Scottie bandwagon, but I've noticed a weakness, I believe, since the beginning of the year, and I don't see it changing all that much. I don't see a good maturity level in Scottie.
Okay.
It took him game upon game of failure to in a post game press conference to say this one's on me once, when he talked about the rest of the time we. And if you're trying to show as a leader, even when things are going really bad, you got to show a ton of fight, and it's got to be on you. You ask for the big paycheck, you ask for the keys to the car, it is on you every night that you don't perform every night. So that's one weakness I see in him. I hope, and my concern is that the veterans that probably had problems with Scottie when he first got here maybe saw that. Maybe they saw somebody that they didn't think had the maturity level to actually be a star in the league. I hope I'm wrong, or I hope he can improve upon that. But that's what I'm seeing. The second thing is, I kind of agree with you on the fact that his injury may be causing some of the problems he's having right now with performance. But if you're tanking and it's having that big of a problem where the guy is minus 30 consecutive nights and growing, sit him. Let it.
Right.
We've seen this happen with the Pacers, where everybody believes that they brought their guard back too quickly because he was so competitive, and he's been terrible this year.
He wasn't competitive. He was chasing a supermax. That's a different situation. Scottie is not chasing a supermax.
But he's played terrible compared to what he played before that injury.
Sure.
Right?
Some could argue he was playing over his head to begin
Right.
with. And I mean, Scottie and Tyrese Halliburton are very different situations. The injuries are very, very different. I think Halliburton's injury was way more serious. Scottie's had a history of ankle injuries going back to grade 11. So this is not something, that's like new or something like that. I mean, it requires rest, recovery. That's all it does. And, if you want to shut him down for like 4 games or whatever, maybe you do that later on when there's nothing to play for. You could argue at 7-26, there's already nothing to play for. I understand that, but I think Scottie is looking at his team, and the night that he decided to play, he wasn't supposed to play, but then RJ was sick and he's just like, okay, I'm going to go. You know what I mean? That's tough. That's tough. And I don't remember what game it was, but I think it was against Minnesota or something. It was a tough game. So, yeah, to answer your first point, I think this is a really interesting thing because, the maturity issues with Scottie have come up a lot. And I've always fought against it. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I completely disagree that he doesn't take accountability. So I don't know, like, if you're listening to a different, set of interviews, or maybe I'm listening to different ones. I've always heard him say, I got to be better. I can't turn the ball over this much. I can't do this. I've always heard that from him. I've always heard, like even going back to his rookie season, right? I heard, I have to do this. I have to do that. He never shifted blame onto anybody. You know what I mean? Even when there was an opportunity to. I mean, even last year, in year 2, when he went through all that slander from the media and like the work ethic issues and stuff, he never came out and started posting clips of him working out. He's never done that. He doesn't hear the noise. That's the coolest part about Scottie, is like he's very loosely aware of what people are thinking and saying about him. And so genuinely, he just cares about his teammates, and he's always done a good job to protect them. I've never seen him throw shade and say, look, we're just a really young roster, okay? That was the Fred VanVleet special. We have a lot of rookies. We have a lot of guys who don't know how to win. We have a lot of guys making unearned opportunities. I mean, God, I made clip upon clip upon clip of Fred VanVleet blasting his teammates, but in that subtle sort of shady way in which it leaves no doubt in the listener's mind who he's talking about, but he doesn't actively say it's Delano Banton and Malachi Flynn. You know what I mean? Like, Scottie's never made any mention of that. Even today, I think before the game when he talked to the media, he said, this is embarrassing. Like, this is not fun for us to go out and I've got to be better. I think he said today that I've got to be better. So yeah, I don't hear that. And to the point of, what the veterans may have seen of him prior to, Scottie's a very strange fellow. He doesn't necessarily hone all of his attention on personal accolades, stats, money. He doesn't do what people expect him to do. I think a lot of people, maybe in a defunct unit, maybe in a game where there's nothing really to play for, they might just put up stats. They might just try to gun for theirs. They might try to be like, okay, tonight's going to be my 35-point game. And Scottie's going to come out in that game and score 11, and people are going to lose their minds because he's trying to set up his teammates. He's just a very weird, and I mean weird in a good way. He's just a very different type of person. When he approaches basketball, he's very pure about it, you know? So he wants to do the right thing. He's always trying to do the right thing. He's always trying to make the right play. And right now, it's just he's so massively over leveraged. I think Kawhi Leonard would be massively over leveraged with this team. You know, people don't fairly account for just how bad the roster is right now. Like they cannot even fathom. There are not 9 guys in the league playing right now on the same team as bad as the 9 guys who played for the Raptors tonight. It's just an unfathomable level of lack of talent, lack of finishing, lack of scoring, lack of shooting. You know what I mean? And it's like there's also a phenomenal amount of effort being exerted defensively. So even the guys who can shoot, like Jameson Battle, Jacoby Walter, Grady Dick, they're not shooting well, right? They're just not shooting that well because they're just so tired. So I don't know. I think it's just a cascading set of issues, but I certainly don't buy into any Scottie not taking ownership. If you think Scottie has maturity issues, I think sometimes he has difficulty controlling his emotions, like his emotional outbursts. If I'd like to see one correction from him, it would be to be a little bit more stoic on the basketball court as opposed to being so reactive, because I feel like he's such a powerful presence for his team that his team sort of feeds off of his frustration when he gets frustrated. And he does not deal well with being down 12 or not getting the call. He starts complaining. And that's something I hope that they can hammer home with him, like Garrett Temple, Kelly Olynyk, Jakob Poeltl, whoever the vets are that have his ear. I hope that they can kind of impart to him, like, this is how you're influencing your team when you do that, when you complain. Yeah.
Yeah, I still like I agree with you with the outburst on the court. I think he was a lot worse probably a year ago doing that than he is today. But I'm not seeing the get on my back and I'll carry you attitude out of him yet. And you know, a couple of games ago, you said, you know, a lot of winning players say there's no difference between losing by 2 and losing by 30. But when you're a pro athlete, there's a huge difference. They may not care in their mind if they've lost for 30, but the problem is you've got 18,000 fans that have paid hundreds of dollars per seat sitting there and looking at a team that isn't putting forth the effort and doesn't have their head guy saying, I'm going to put him on my back. I'm going to carry him. And if he can't, sit him. Let him repair himself for 4 or 5 games so that when they come back in the new year and they've got 18,000 fans sitting with them, let them put him on the back again or don't lose by 30, right? The other issue is I still am a believer in Darko. It seems like half the planet has left his side these days. But the thing that's bothering me the most, and this bothered me a year ago as well, is part of management's job is to stand up when things are going really bad as well and get in front of the press and say, hey, this is what we said before. Here's what we don't like about what we're seeing. But I've got this guy's back. I've got this guy's back. I've got that guy's back. And when you've lost this many games by this many points, silence it's like they've abdicated the throne. They've got to get out in front and say, we apologize. This is terrible. We've got this guy's back and this guy's back and this guy's back. We don't like what we're seeing. So I don't like that there's silence for upper level management. I was really ticked at Darko during that the game before last. And he got up in front of the cameras and repeated over and over and over again that he had to do a better job. And he said it with force. And I was like, okay, buddy, like, good for you. Got your back. Go. Do your best. But I think we need to see that fire and that passion in front of the cameras for more people, because it does relay to other people on the team and other people in the organization. Quiet, silence is deadly. It's absolutely deadly. And I just like to see management from the top down, Masai, Bobby, Darko, Scottie, all saying the same thing with force in front of the camera.
Sure. Yeah. I I hear what you're saying, but their message to start the season was this is year one of a rebuild, which is cap. It's not true, but sure. Okay, we'll go with it. That's your party line. This is year one of a rebuild. I think they sent a very, very loud and clear message when they didn't use their mid-level exception, when they salary dumped Dennis Schroeder last year, and which is ironic, only to take on Kelly Olynyk and then give him the exact same money that you saved, which is like, what the hell was the point of that? And then on top of that, you know, getting 5 rookies, roster spots are important. You know, there's a lot of really competent NBA players that don't have homes right now. Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr. Like, there's a lot of guys who are better than the guys you have on your roster right now. And yet you are spending roster spots on guys like Brandon Carlson earlier in the year, Bruno Fernando, minimum guy. And I don't think that this is necessarily how a front office operates when they're trying to win. Not using your mid-level when you're, not having a competent backup point guard, not having a competent backup big, not having any rim protection behind Jakob Poeltl. So basically your entire season is banking on him playing 82 games and Emmanuel quickly playing 82 games. If those two guys don't play 82 games, you're screwed. You know what I mean? So even that, like, in the best case scenario, the Raptors were going to be a surprise 38-40 win team, fight for the play-in, whatever. I don't necessarily even prefer that outcome to the current outcome that we have right now, because I prefer the pick. I prefer the higher draft pick. And because we will be getting a higher draft pick, I think I'll suspend my judgment for management based on what they're actually trying to do. What they tried to do when they got 5 rookies was get 5 young players in the door who were good players. And relative to where you got them, I would say all 5 fit. Are any of them franchise saviors? Hell no. No, none of them are franchise saviors, but I think you've done a good job. So I think most people can kind of tell from the injuries. I hope most people can just see that this team is not lose by 50 bad. I hope most people can see that. But I suspect some people really can't. I suspect because we live in a world where, I didn't grow up in this world, and I'm suspecting you didn't either. But I think a lot of people grow up in this world where it's like, what happened last Tuesday is dead to me. What happened today? It's like, what have you done for me lately? Everything is just off. Look, we were singing this team's praises just 2 weeks ago for, being competitive in all these games, ethical tanking, la, 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 4 weeks ago, we were talking about the progression that Scottie's made as a pick and roll ball handler. We were talking about this emerging season that Grady's having and RJ's having and Ochai is having. And it's just like 4 weeks does not wipe out 8 weeks. It just doesn't. Like, that's not how I operate. So I'm taking like the bird's eye view on this, and I'm staying patient because I know that it's so easy. It would be so easy for me to come out here and be like, this is so terrible. The process is ruined. Darko is terrible, because I think that's what people want to hear. But that's bad for my soul. Just like speaking, like telling the truth is good, and the truth is this is complicated. Basketball is complicated. When you're 7 and 2016, and I hear what you're saying about the professionalism, right? Because there are paying fans in the building, and you feel bad when those paying fans watch you get blown out the way that the Raptors got blown out in the last game. It's like there's no excuse to lose that badly at home, but you're so out-talented at times. You're so out-talented.
I get you on the talented, but I'm actually looking at this as more of a business than anything else. That's my background, and my job for years was going into companies and turning around divisions and turning around companies. That was my job.
That's cool.
And 90% of that is really, really hard work that happens behind the scenes. And in the business game, we call them hockey sticks, where there's a whole bunch of hard work and very little progress. And all of a sudden things take off and they go through the roof really quickly, right? But the problem is, when you are doing all that hard work, the blade of the hockey stick, when you're doing all that hard work, it is imperative that the leadership, even though things haven't turned around yet, get in front of everybody and say, here's what's going on. Mm-hmm. Here's how we think. Here was the plan. It doesn't matter if they said it 3 months ago or 4 months ago, because everybody out there may not be like you and me. And they may be saying, what are you going to do tomorrow? Like, I don't care what you did yesterday. What's going on tomorrow? And it's management's job. It's the leadership's job to get back out there and consistently remind people of what the plan is, what they said, and have their opinions changed? Yes or no? Like I think you said earlier in this podcast that there was silence. Management isn't telling us about progression of what's happening with player
specifically
injury.
about injuries.
Right?
Yeah, but that's how they've chosen to operate pretty much back 8 years, 9 years now. They have never been very
and
forthcoming.
it's fine, but you will have people, which I think is not good. You will have a majority of people today, even worse than it was when I was turning businesses around 15, 20 years ago. You will have people today wanting the baby to be thrown out with the bathwater because things have turned. And it is management's job to stem that tide. And honestly, it's marketing. You can't forget that you've got to market the product and market the people that you're depending on to turn around the situation. And I think it just doesn't feel strong enough to me right now. When you lose, how many games have they lost by 30 points or more now in a row? 3, 4?
Mm-hmm.
Like if that extends out to 5 and then management comes out, you're too late. Right? It's got to be, we're unacceptable. We're trying this. We're trying that. Even if you say, you know what, poor Scottie's been playing hurt badly. We're sitting him for 5 or 6 games. We want him to properly heal and come back to the court. Whatever you got to do, you got to stand in front of the consumer and say, we're not happy, we're not satisfied, but this is a process. You got to remind them. It just, you and I could say it. There could be 5 guys that stand up in post-game press conferences that say it. It means nothing compared to management coming out and reiterating the plan and their goals. But anyway, man, keep up the good work. Really appreciate it. And I believe it'll turn around next year too. I just hope that I hope that the players that are in the fight and feeling down right now feel like management is going to support them in public and is going to say, you know, we expected bad things, maybe not this bad, but you know, we are aware of what's going on. We're not happy about it, but here's what we're going to do.
Right. I think there's such a complication when you're talking about an organization this big. Now, I have no idea how big business is you were turning around. I don't know if you're talking like Fortune 500 companies, talking $4 billion companies, but there's so many moving pieces here, right? And on the one hand, does management coming out saying this is unacceptable, does that not turn up the pressure on Darko Rajaković and the players? Number one. Number two, is it not management who should technically take the onus for 90% of this? I think they should, right? They're the ones who stacked these players together. They're the ones who signed Kelly Olynyk to this deal. They're the ones who are holding Bruce Brown. They're the ones instructing behind the scenes. We got to play this guy, this guy, this guy, even though they haven't played with these guys all year, even though we're losing all these games. We got to reinitiate Bruce Brown because we got to trade this guy. So look, I mean, I think, you know, no one wants to lose. I think that's one thing any person who's risen to this point, you know, there's a healthy amount of ego and that goes into it. I certainly try to put myself in Darko's shoes very often, or Scottie's shoes, or RJ's shoes, or whatever. I try to wear those shoes in my mind a little bit. And even though I can't really, you know, I've never coached at the professional level, I've never been a professional basketball player, I try my best to imagine what it must feel like to go out there every single night knowing you're a 7-26 team or 7-25 team and still put together a competent effort, knowing you're consistently risking injury, that you're tired, that you're exhausted out of your mind, you know. And I think about Darko, you know, like, and it's like, how much trust do you have to have in these players and their long-term development to consistently become the whipping boy of this fan base, right? Because really, I mean, his reputation is taking a very, very big hit across the world. It's not just, you know, for him, he's wearing an entire country on his back. He's wearing my country on his back, right? So it's like we're all looking really stupid right now, aren't we? Right? But you know, I think about this from the heart. I think he's done a very, very good job with this team. I know people won't like to hear that because right now it feels like, oh, you know, it's so bad. How can you sit here? But it's like, you know, the Raptors have been favored to lose almost every single game this year by Vegas. Every single game. So the odds makers have pretty much favored you to lose like every game this year but one, I think. So you should be like 1-30, right? So on glasses half full, you've won 6 games you shouldn't have won, and you've been competitive in a whole bunch of games you had no business being competitive in. And it's like the same coach that we're trying to throw under the bus to some extent there was the same coach for that team too, right? So it's like, I don't like to judge people for something they're not yet doing. It would be like if I hire a person to be a nanny and a cook, I don't like to judge her cooking based on how well she did as a nanny. I mean, like, unless there's something glaringly obvious that will project from one thing to the other. We've hired Darko Rajaković to be a development coach right now. That's his job. His only job is to develop. And of course, there is the second job, which is to save the brand, right? To save the product, to make it look appealing, to be competitive. But man, it's just so difficult with this many young players. I mean, Scottie's not going to come out and say, I have 5 rookies as teammates, so I'll say it. Rookies are not supposed to win in the NBA. As good as Jamal Shed and Jacoby Walter will probably be in a couple of years, as good as Jonathan Mobile might be after a couple of years of development, they're not there right now. And under most circumstances, they're not playing for the Dallas Mavericks. None of these players are playing for the Dallas Mavericks. And to anyone out there thinking Darko should be on the hot seat, my only question is this. Okay, let me just pick a league average team, literally league average. Let's see here, NBA standings. Let's pick a team that is moderately deep. Not the Knicks, the Bucks, the Hawks. Okay, the Heat. Okay, perfect. The Heat. The Heat are 16 and 14. Which one of these players is playing for the Heat as a key rotation player? Scottie would play for the Heat, sure. Who else? Jakob would play for the Heat. Those are 2 players. Is there another player on this roster who played tonight who would actually play rotation minutes for the Heat?
I don't know about that because defense is pretty important to Riley. So I don't know if there'd be anybody else. So you might get.
That's a play-in team, though. That's what I'm saying. That's a play-in team. So there's gaps between play-in and some people saying Emmanuel Quickley. Well, Emmanuel Quickley didn't play tonight. So I'm just talking about the players that played tonight. Who would probably play? Someone saying Bruce probably. Yeah, Bruce might play. Bruce might be their 10th man. So those are your 3 guys who would play. And, Kelly might, be on the fringes. But none of these other players are playing. So which means you started 2, possibly 3 players tonight. You started 3 players against the defending champions that wouldn't be a rotation player on a play-in team.
Yeah, and I get it. It's just coming from my perspective, pressure's a privilege. And as soon as you ask for the paycheck and ask for the job, doesn't matter. If you're a leader, doesn't matter what pressure you're under. Doesn't matter how many aspects of your job you're doing well or you aren't doing well, or how many you get held accountable. At the end of the day, your job, because you took the paycheck and because you asked for the job, you're stuck with it, dude. And whether or not your reputation goes down or up, you asked for the responsibility, you take the responsibility, period.
Right.
And if you got a Grady Dick who probably at this point hasn't asked for the responsibility yet, hasn't taken the paycheck for the responsibility yet, it's a whole different thing than the Masai Ujiri's, the Bobbies, the Darkos, the Scotties. You ask for the paycheck, you get the pressure, period. Deal with it.
Yeah, I got you. And again, some of these things are bestowed upon us. Scottie didn't ask for OG and Pascal to be traded. I'm sure he didn't. The organization wanted to shift everything to his timeline. And, it's tough. He's not those guys. Like, he's not RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett has literally been the first option on every single team he's ever been on. Scottie has never been that go-to scorer archetype. Like, the closest thing you could even say was even then, it wasn't quite like RJ. You know what I mean? It wasn't quite like Andrew Wiggins. It wasn't like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. These guys have had a lot of on-the-job training as being their team's bread and butter, go-to closer, top leading, shot attempts guy. And this is where sometimes, Gilbert Arenas has opened up this huge debate about not wanting his son to go to a super team or one of these farm teams or one of these power clubs in the AAU circuit because he wants him to learn how to be the man. And it's like, yeah, learning how to be the man on a basketball court is really difficult. I've never been the man on a basketball court, ever. I've only ever been a role player on every team I've ever played on. I was a spot-up shooter. I was a pick-and-roll ball handler. I'd be the defensive pest, but I've never been like the closer. I have no idea what those guys went through. It wasn't my skill set. It wasn't my athleticism. That's not my job. But learning how to do that, honestly, when you haven't done it for 22 years is difficult. And Kawhi had to go through it. Paul George had to go through it. There's a lot of guys who have become that. So the Raptors are banking on Scottie to become that. And I don't think it's going to look pretty all the time, but there's going to be moments. There have been moments. There have been so many moments. And, you see moments even in this game where he's going up against, there's moments in every game where he finds a pass that he's not supposed to be able to find. There's that entire video that I made on Scottie being a point guard where, it's just like, my God, some of those assists that he's throwing. It's like, man, it took Kawhi and Giannis years to learn how to throw out of a double team like that.
And it can be awesome. The problem is with all those leadership roles, the easiest thing in the world is to throw up a sparkler every once in a while. It doesn't seem easy to most people, but the really hard part is producing every night producing, not having any nights, consecutive nights where you are doing terrible. And it's only the guys that produce, that constantly improve, constantly pull rabbits out of their hat. In every leadership role, it's only those guys who end up being the superstars. It cannot be like you even seen it with players that have gotten in the bad books in the NBA, and they've had to find another spot like Kyrie and learn from their mistakes and go someplace else and get their footing back under them. Because the world, if you're the leader and you've asked for the money, you've asked for responsibility, and you don't perform, no matter what level of industry you're in, no matter what professional sports team you are going to get eaten alive. And the whole aspect of the remuneration and the responsibility is tough. Yeah. Either step up or get eaten. Pressure's a privilege. Step up or get eaten. It's the way it is.
You know what? Like in Scottie's second year, when he went through the media onslaught, the fans, sort of the pushback, I wanted to protect him super hard because it was I don't know. It's something really strange when you think about it from the perspective of an adult looking at a 20-year-old being dissected this way, especially when that 20-year-old has exceeded the wildest expectations that anyone could have had of him coming out of college. That it just felt nitpicky and it felt wrong. However, last year, Scottie showed that he was an all-star. He showed that he can do this. He showed that he can, average 23, 24 points per game. He's shown that he can shoot 40% from three for a 3-month stretch. So he's shown all the glimpses. He's shown he can be a lockdown defender. He's shown he can be an extremely positive analytics player. And he's shown he can be a starter on a winning team. So we've seen snapshots of everything. We've seen the midi pull up. We've seen the pick and roll ball handler. We've seen the roller. We've seen the post scorer. We've seen the center, the power forward, the small forward, the shooting guard, and the point guard. And we've seen positive and negative stretches on all of them. We've seen him lock down Nikola Jokic. We've seen him put up 19 points in the fourth quarter against Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those are MVPs. We've seen him hold Steph Curry to his worst game prior to this season ever. And he was his primary defender. Those are 3 MVPs. We've seen him snarl in the face of Kevin Durant as he put up God knows how many points against the Nets in that fourth quarter where he nearly stormed the Raptors back. That's another MVP. I mean, shit, we've seen him put 34 points, 32 points, 17 rebounds as a rookie at LA against LeBron and the Lakers. That's another MVP. We've seen him go up against the very, very best and outshine them even. He has the world on his shoulders at this point. At this point, I won't sit here and say protect. I actually have had my perspective shaped on this to the point where I now agree with you a lot more. And it was because of Joe Mazzulla, which is ironic, the coach that we just lost to, where he said basically what you just said, pressure is a privilege, that he has, the privilege to, Jason Tatum has suffered so much criticism. He's like, no, he's privileged to. He's that's a good thing. And so, yeah, I tend to agree with that. I've tended to succeed in my life when I had people around me who demanded more of me. I've tended to fail in my life when people expected less. So, if that was my big thing with Scottie, with all the superstar push and all that stuff. Do I genuinely believe that he's one of the top 15 performing players in the league this year? He might not be one of the top 35 performing players this year. He might not be one of the top 40 performing players this year. I mean, if you want to keep it a straight, like Cade's been better than him this year. Franz has been better than him this year. There's like 4 players in his draft class that are playing better than him this year. But I want to know that, because I know that Scottie sees, he may not care about everything, but he sees everything. The narrative is shaping. I need him to hear that you are supposed to be a superstar. I need him to hear it. I need him to hear that you're the face of the franchise. I don't want him to be able to get away with being the third option anymore. He's too good. He's too talented. He's got all that potential.
And here's your dream is already taken care of, because he got the paycheck. So the people above him are expecting that, period. And he asked for the responsibility, and they traded away the people that would have taken some of that responsibility off of his shoulders.
In fairness, he didn't ask for those players to
I didn't say that, but that's what's happened. He asked to lead, and he asked for the paycheck. He said, I want to try to be all NBA this year, right? That's asking to be the face of the franchise. And did
he say he wants to be all NBA? That was Pascal
that's what his contract pointed to. He was going to get a big bonus if he was all NBA or if he was defensive NBA player of the year, right? It was a big add-on to his contract.
Well, yeah, I mean, he would qualify for a supermax if he had gotten that, but that's nothing written into the contract that he signed. His contract was league standard for a player who's an all-star at 22. Tyrese Haliburton got the same contract. He got a bigger contract. Cade got the same contract.
Let's not disagree that he didn't want to be face of the franchise. He didn't want that. He didn't want to be the leader.
It's almost been like in spite of things, right? Like, here's the thing. Like with Scottie, something you realize very early is he doesn't draw too much attention to himself. He's not pompous about it. He's not like, give me the keys. He's not an arrogant or egotistical guy like that. Like he's actually deeply collaborative. You actually want to break some of those habits with him, right? Nobody who wants to be the man agrees to shift away from NSU school and then goes to, Montverde to play second option to Cade. Nobody does that. Nobody in the world who wants to be the man in college goes to FSU and knows that they're going to play super deep benches and you sometimes going to come off the bench. There's a certain quality to him which is deeply about team winning. He cares about team winning. That's why I was so caught off guard when you said he wanted to be all NBA. He's never said that. He said that he can be one of the best players in the league when he was drafted. And I believe that he can be. So, winners tend to have that mentality. I don't think Magic Johnson was about the accolades either. I don't think Larry Bird was about the accolades. There's, winners tend to think team, and then the accolades will come. Tim Duncan was like that too. Kawhi Leonard's pretty much like that. These guys don't give a shit what's happening unless they're winning. And I don't think Scottie gives a shit about what's happening unless he's winning. We've seen exactly about 25 games of him being a first-ish option on a competitive team. And that was last year. And he made All-Star. So if that's a sample of what he can do with a competent defense around him, I think it's encouraging because he's definitely got a lot more in his bag this year. I've seen him do pull-off dribble counters that I never saw last year. I've seen him do a lot of stuff that he hasn't done last year. And I mean, again, it's like, it's weird, right? Like sometimes you see young players and you see them put together this really great passing game, but they don't shoot well that game. And then you see the next game and you're like, they didn't pass well that game, but they shot 8 for 8. So it's like, put it together, man. We've seen the parts. We've seen all the parts of Scottie's game. Every part. The scary thought is if he ever puts it together, he is a top 10 player in the league. So if he'll put it together or not, he's obviously being paid like a max player. But I think people need to realize that's just standard. I hope that the media is not pushing this idea of like, okay, well, he demanded to be paid this way, and so he must perform expected or whatever. He has not earned a dime of that contract yet. Not a dime. That's one of the biggest misconceptions around the league. It's like, well, he's being paid like max player. No, he's being paid like a role player right now. He's making less money than Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Chris Boucher. He's making less money than Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley has played, 3 games for us this year? Why aren't people mad at him? I don't want people to be mad.
Until next year. Right? We've got a half a year. And then that excuse goes out the window.
It's not an excuse. Right? I mean, look, I'm not sitting here saying that he's playing well. He's certainly the best player on the team, though. You paid him like the best player on your team, you know, and he's just one of those players that's deeply connected with his teammates. And, you know, this was a debate on Thinking Basketball where they put him 10th on the 25 under 25 draft. And they were just like, he's so complicated because you think to yourself, if this guy was playing with the Boston Celtics in place of Derek White or something, he'd probably be an all-star every year because it would be easier for him. He wouldn't have to over leverage himself. But then you think about it from the Raptors perspective, and it's like, we already know he can do that. We know he can be a catch and shoot guy. We know he can be a role guy. We need to see the expansion of the game. All the reps that were robbed in year 1 and 2, we need to see those now. And it's just like, if he had pulled together this season as a rookie, I think people will be calling him like a future great, right? But because he's doing it in his 4th year, it's kind of backwards. And it has been backwards. His development has been backwards. Everything has been backwards. But I remain very, very firm that this is a guy who's committed to winning long-term and committed to his team. And he's just the type of player that I've just seen win in the NBA my whole life. So I'm betting he's not going to lose for long.
I mean, I get it. The pieces are there.
Mhm.
It's just that we ask for consistency in moves and winning from Masai Ujiri. We would ask for consistency from any head coach in the NBA, regardless of if they were one of the top paid or middle paid coaches. We'd demand consistency out of those guys. And that's the exact same thing we have to demand out of the leaders on the team.
Sure. I'll ask you one final question before you get out of here. Right now, the Raptors are 7-26. What record, if there is a record, assuming there's a record, not a loaded question, what record would be satisfactory to you? How many more wins would they have to have for you to have been encouraged by this? So right now they're at 21.2% win percentage. So what would the record have to look like? Would they have to be like 12-20 like the Brooklyn Nets? Would they have to be 15-18, so almost 500 like the Chicago Bulls? Or would they have to be dead even like the Golden State Warriors and San Antonio Spurs at 16-16?
I think because of the injury bug that they've had, and because of, in my mind, they've still got a rookie coach that's learning on the job, because I'm not seeing consistency out of him either yet.
Okay.
I really don't care about the win total, other than the fact that I think these guys need to win a game every once in a while just to make them feel better about themselves. So if they got up into the 20 area, but if the games were closer, if they were under 10 or 10 or 12, not 30 and 50, if that happened, I'd be completely fine, right? And I care for the fans seeing something that's closer and more exciting. At the beginning of the year, compared to the end of last year, my girlfriend and I would sit down and watch these games, and we'd be like, oh, this is so much more fun. They're losing, but so much more fun, right?
Right.
And if they sat Scottie for 4 or 5 games and gave Shed another 15 minutes, I'd be happier, because I'd be going, they're finally letting that guy try to prove himself on the court and giving enough minutes where he can get the experience level. Give Mobo more minutes. Take those minutes and give them to the kids. If they lose by 20, fine. But I think you're actually going to see more fight from people that are looking for a job in the NBA right now in these situations. So sorry for the long answer to the short question, but
no, I hear it.
You know,
I get that.
A few more wins to keep the spirits up, but get aggressive, stay close. You know, if you're Jakob Poeltl and you're going to take a defensive foul for somebody bumping into you, make them pay. Make them pay, right? I'm going to get hit with the foul. You're going to feel it, right? That kind of aggression, especially for a Canadian team,
right? Yeah,
right.
That's what it is.
Nobody in Canada cares if you win or lose, as long as you fight like a dog when you do it. That's what they want to see.
Did you see the fight tonight?
I didn't. I saw it first half.
Yeah,
I thought they were trying really hard, but their shooting was reminded me of almost every other Raptor team I've ever seen. Like, I thoroughly believe the reason Jakob Poeltl's got a great job here is because we miss so many shots that he can just pick up garbage around the rim and dunk it, put it in the basket. But
sure,
man, I don't need a lot more wins. I just need a lot more fight, and from management all the way down. Because every game that I watch Shed, I see a guy fighting, no matter what the score is.
100%.
I see him fight. I don't see that at a lot of the rest of the team. I can tell when Poeltl's fighting because his whole body will turn red. You'll see it on the screen. When he's not red, he's not trying hard. He's not pushing it. He's not breathing hard. And in half the games I've watched Poeltl play, he's not red. His whole body goes red when he's having a hard game.
Yeah, I hear you. It's days like this that I sometimes miss Larry Kane calling in, because Larry had that professional, athlete experience of, being a Canadian legend and a Canadian athlete. And one of the things I'll always remember is him talking about OG Anunoby, and how OG Anunoby, every time you saw him, it was just like he was a puddle, like there was just dripping sweat off of him. Yeah. So you gotta. Certainly the Raptors have to fight. I think they've hit a wall. And I do believe that walls are hit in the NBA quite often. Rookies hit walls, right? I think the Raptors collectively have hit a wall almost at the exact same time. And that's going to happen when you work this hard. I really do think that there's a human component to the exhaustion that the Raptors are feeling. I do think that their exhaustion is absolutely being amplified by the fact that they're so injured. Guys are always coming in and out of lineups. You're always playing with different players. You have a system which requires you to pick up full court. It's just almost like, I think the Raptors have sort of lost faith in what they're doing a little bit as well, because it doesn't work. It's not working. And I mean, it's not designed to work. So it's joke's on you sort of situation, right? You almost feel duped. You're like, shit, I'm trying super hard and there's no chance in hell I'm going to stop this guy. So it's almost like you want to go back to like what actually might stop the guy, because you're tired of getting beat by 50, right? I don't know. So it's like when your jumpers don't go, like, I mean, under normal circumstances tonight, you lose 111, 125. You play this hard defensively, your competitive loss, whatever. Or you lose at the buzzer like we did last time against Jason Tatum. This team is not as good as we made them look in the second half. They're not as bad as we made them look in the first half, though, either. So, but I don't think we're as bad as we played this game. I certainly don't. I think Jacoby, Jameson, I mean, God damn it, everyone's missing open layups. Everyone's missing open threes. Like, what do you attribute that to other than, a curse? It's not a curse. It's just dead legs. I've missed an open layup on a break before. I was dead. I was so tired. It happens. Mistakes happen. Turnovers happen. There's just there's some telltale signs of teams that are exhausted. Short jumpers, missed free throws, turnovers, miscues, defensive lapses, some of the things that these players are doing. And it's like you would actually think they've never played competitive basketball in their lives before. So it's just exhaustion.
And just like you said, that can be that can be demoralizing for the guys. And that may be a rookie coach trying to teach too much in one shot, practicing people too hard, right? It can't be that, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's everybody's got to take a punch. Everybody's got to stand up and say, we're behind you. We're gonna make an adjustment here. We're gonna make an adjustment there. Even if they don't say it all on screen and they just say, my bad, and we're gonna get better. Right. Yeah. I can tell you as an old leader, the number of times I got up and said, my bad, behind the scenes, making changes. I screwed up here. I screwed up here. I screwed up here. But we believe in you guys. It's an unbelievable help to your customers, in this case, the fans. And it's an unbelievable help to the guys that are on the front lines to see that done publicly. Huge help. Anyway,
I think you're going to get a Darko or Bruce. Sorry, not Bruce. Wow. Darko or Bobby presser within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I hope
I
so.
think you might get it within a week. Yeah,
Sooner or later.
but it's probably
Sooner rather than later.
but it's not going to be to excuse the poor on-court play. It's probably going to brush over the poor on-court play. It's probably going to be an announce a trade, because a trade
Right.
needs to happen at this point
Yeah.
to reinvigorate the team and reinvigorate the fan base, or potentially just blow this whole thing up at this
Yeah.
point, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, all right, thanks
Thanks,
a
man.
lot for calling in. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. So, okay, as is tradition. Okay, first of all, a couple things. Super chats. Thank you so much, Jacob Isaac. This is very nice of you. Thank you, Tank Nation Stand Up. Indeed, we're going to run the Tankathon for you. Resident One, request video topic with e-transfer. If you didn't already, just don't have to dig through it. Can you please, with your e-transfer, just write out what you want the video to be about? I think I read it earlier where you wanted it to be about what the Raptors can do defensively differently. This is something we're going to be trying out in the new year. I understand I have a lot of obligations with Pendant, so I'm not going to be able to get to all of these right away. But this is something that is almost akin to what they do with Patreon, which is video requests. So if you have a video that you really, really want to, okay, perfect. Can you just send me an email detailing what you want broken down, if you can, if that is perfectly okay with you? Like, if you're able to do that, it would just help me to construct the video. So yeah, I figured, if there's a video that people really want, like a video breakdown of a particular player, or a video breakdown of a particular scheme, or even a draft analysis video of a particular prospect that you're super high on, you could probably do that. And I've estimated that it's roughly going to translate to about $10 a minute, sort of on the video request thing. So, I mean, obviously, wanna be, yeah. And then the other thing is, because I have auto deposit enabled, that's the other problem. So please, if you have a topic, just check in, write me an email first, because there are certain topics that I'm not going to do on this channel. I'm not, like, why is Scottie Barnes a bum? Like, I'm not going to do that video. Why RJ Barrett should be traded for 1 second round pick? I'm not going to do that video. So there's just certain videos that I'm just not going to do. But if there's a video that y'all really want to see, then clearly I can definitely make that happen. So shoot me an email. Okay, we're gonna do the tankathon roll, right? Because this is what this is all for, unfortunately, at this point. And I know some people hate it, but it's just the reality of the situation. And the Raptors moved down to 6. Please, Lord, do not let that happen on the night. And do not, there we go, 3rd. We used to have to spend this many, many more times to get the Raptors the first pick, but we'll always end on the Raptors getting the first pick. This has been a very, very long chat, but I'm thankful to Stagger and to sad Lil John for calling in. Obviously, the Stagger conversation was very interesting, because I genuinely usually go into hysterics when somebody says that Scottie has maturity issues. Maybe I am growing up as a person, because I was able to listen to that and respond coherently without getting all emotional about it. But it's partially because I'm just not emotional about it. I just genuinely, I see what I see with him. And I think Karen, Sean said, are we doing a midnight live or not? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a midnight live. Y'all pick the topic. When the video goes live, just shoot some ideas, and then maybe by 9 o'clock we'll make a decision on what the topic should be. I think someone suggested the year in recap, like kind of recapping the year. Lord help me. You really want me you want me starting off 2025 by recapping a 20 and 63 year? Cool. Yeah, we can do that. And look, I understand that everything looks really, really grim right now. I do. Trust me. When the OKC Thunder traded everything away from that, they traded away 2 borderline MVP candidates in succession, very close succession, and Russell Westbrook and Paul George. It looked like very, very sad times. It looked like very grim times in OKC. But right now, it's beautiful times in OKC. Competent management, good development, good coaching staff, and good people eventually will lead to winning, in theory at least. I know it feels like the Raptors can never win. I think this is it feels like the worst is coming true right now. Scottie does not look like a superstar right now. Sure, he doesn't look like a superstar right now. Some of these players, these young players that, we were seeing so much progression from, we're seeing regression from those players. Surprise, But, there's 2 players who've been trending up in the right direction prior to this game, which is Jamal Shed and Jacoby Walter. Both of them started out the season -6 boxes minus. They've moved up to, going into this game, -4.9. That's a pretty far way to go. So I think that overall, Q&A with the chat, a bit more interactive of a stream would be cool. Yeah. When can we expect to see a fully healthy team? Probably end of January, if that. New Year's resolution for every Raptor. Oh, that's a very interesting one. Oh, Peter D. You know, it's like, it is what it is at this point. Peter, you're going to write stuff like this every single day. And you know what? Thank you for writing stuff like this every single day, because reading your comments, as often as I've read your comments over the last year, they don't usually make a lot of sense to me, but I understand that you think they make sense to you, which is pretty cool. But I will say that they have really tested my patience in a good way. I'm happy they've tested my patience. And I'm happy to say that, you know, they've made me a better person, because I've had to refrain myself from responding to them as often as I have. You'll notice that I have probably never responded to a Peter D comment ever. And I'm pretty responsive. I just don't respond to them. That's just how I feel. Anyways, realistic trades that the Raptors can make to acquire some assets as a topic. That is a good idea. Realistic trades would be a good idea. I mean, given the fact that the Lakers and Nets pretty much just set the market with the Dorian Finney-Smith trade, I think that might be like a great idea. Certainly. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. I'm gonna talk to you all later. Have a great one. I got to get on the phone with the cinema and, you know, pan out some details for the Penn Dance Film Festival. The Penn Dance Film Festival is coming up. It's February 27th to March 2nd. Best independent cinema in the world, coming to your city, Toronto, in the winter. What am I doing right now? Am I trying to be cool with all my hand movements and stuff? Yes, I'm telling you about awesome independent cinema, and it's coming. I run the Penn Dance Film Festival. Last year, saw a ton of Raptor fans at Penn Dance. Most of y'all seem to really enjoy yourselves. I hope you'll come out again. Passes are on sale. Early bird prices are on until mid-January or so. Link in the description. Peace, and thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you, if you don't tune in tonight, if we don't speak to each other again until the new year, I hope you have a very, very blessed new year. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Thank you so much for supporting this team, even though you probably don't want to right now and you don't have to. Hey, when things turn around, you'll be one of the rare ones who never quit. That seems oddly guilt trippy, and that's probably my mother coming out of me, but you know, it's how I feel. Like, you know, I'm never gonna be able to say, like, I'm never gonna be one of those content creators that just gave up on this team. You know what I mean? I'm not just gonna like start making OKC content. Fuck that. No, you know, we will ride or die. Talk to you guys later. Bye.